Hi, I'm Melanie, and I'm not a public speaker, and this is the first time I'm sharing my testimony, so just bear with me. 10 years ago, I had an abortion. I believed in God, but did not have a relationship with Him, despite growing up and living in a religious household. I was always partying and or drinking and smoking pot at the age of 22. I had been going to church, but not living for God at all, and only prayed the Lord's Prayer some nights when I would go to bed sober. I was living at my mom's house with no plans for the future, an undiagnosed mental illness, and an addiction problem. Life seemed fine to me though. Me and the father of my children worked at a restaurant together during that time. We started living sinfully right away and continued partying after work. I stopped smoking pot but continued drinking, and it became an almost daily activity for me, even alone in my mom's basement. I had a deep hole inside me that I was trying to fill with relationships, cigarettes, drinking, and love instead of God. My husband and I moved in together out of wedlock, and I became pregnant at the age of 23. I remember immediately panicking and praying, which was not something I was doing very often. I realized I hated who I was and had been. I was too ashamed to keep praying, so I stopped. My mother found out and told me she was post-abortive, and she had been pregnant with twins. I was shocked, and I didn't understand God's love for me, even though I hated myself. I didn't believe I was even close to good enough for a child. I remember wanting the baby out of me. I didn't even refer to it as a baby, but an it. I remember thinking I couldn't possibly raise an it because I was a drunk, codependent human who was deeply troubled and lost in life. I convinced myself that it was a clump of cells, and my two best friends affirmed this for me. The culture affirmed this for me. I felt fear of disappointing my mother and father, fear of my partner leaving me. I didn't feel worthy enough to pray or turn to God, and immediately turned to abortion as my only option. I kept drinking and told my partner late one night I was pregnant and going to get an abortion. Something deep inside me wanted him to put up a fight, but he didn't. He said something along the lines of, "That's not my decision to make, so I guess that's what we'll do." I made an appointment at our local Planned Parenthood the next day. They told me it would be $400 to take a pill. I didn't even have $400 and asked the father for money, and he gave me half of it. I felt distant to him and very confused. I again convinced myself, and my friends co-signed my decision to get an abortion. I used my yearly birthday check from my grandmother to pay for it. It felt very wrong, and I started to become even more disturbed with myself in the situation. On the morning of my appointment, my old best friend took me, not the father. She was using my anxiety the whole car ride and even in the waiting room with the talking points of, "It's not a baby yet. This is the right thing to do. You'll feel relief afterwards." Boy, was she wrong. Sitting inside the waiting room, I said a prayer for the first time in a long time and immediately wanted to leave. I wanted someone to tell me to stop. I turned to my best friend, and then a worker called my name. I followed them into a room, and the worker asked me if I wanted to do this, and I said, "I don't know." They then showed me literature on how the pill works and completely ignored my answer, "I don't know." I was confused. I was taken to another room for an ultrasound. I started to cry, and the technician told me that crying was normal, but I would feel relief afterwards. The same thing my friend said. She then asked me, "Do twins run in your family?" My heart sunk, and I knew I was pregnant.